Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show, and what a day. The sun is shining just a little bit brighter. The fall leaves are in absolutely perfect form, and we are feeling very good here at the Megyn Kelly Show, and I dare say in America. The Democratic and media struggle sessions are in full swing. Shoot it into my veins, as the kids say, as former President Donald Trump and his garbage supporters celebrate his truly historic victory. We're going to break down everything for you today. It's truly stunning, but get ready because we have so much goodness prepared for you today, from the data to the reaction, and dare I say it, the dreams, the ambitions, the aspirations that were unburdened by what has been when Americans decided to turn the page on the Democrats and say, we are not going back, and say, hard work is good work, and say, we're going to win. But first, an important message from Vice President Kamala Harris.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The path may seem hard, the work may seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning, and church morning is on its way.
Yes, yes, preach, sister. Joy does cometh in the morning. That's all I got for you, because she has yet to concede. She has yet to concede, though we are told she plans to speak later this afternoon, reportedly at 4 p.m. at her alma mater, Howard University, and that she's going to call Trump before that. Nearly 24 hours after she took a page right out of Hillary Clinton's 2016 playbook and refused to face her devastated supporters, instead sending some man on her campaign staff out there to deliver the news that everyone needed to get the F out of there. There's no party. Get out. No fireworks. No glass ceiling shattering. We had so much fun last night. Thank you to all of you, millions of you who joined us on our YouTube live feed and our SiriusXM live feed throughout the night. The fun continues now in person. Guess who I have right here with me in the red studio? The guys from the Fifth Column are here. Right here. Kmele Foster, Michael Moynihan, and Matt Welch. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. There's no greater purpose in life than protecting those we love. And in our uncertain world today, that can make us all feel a little uneasy. Safety and comfort in our lives is so important, and this is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold Group. Gold has stood the test of time as one of the safest investments we can make. Maybe you're considering whether an IRA or 401k still fits your needs in today's environment. Well, at Birch Gold, they will help you convert all or part of your IRA into physical gold, tax-free and penalty-free, and it doesn't cost you 1 cent out of pocket. Over the past 5 years, the price of gold is actually up about 80%. Hello? Get a free info kit to learn more about gold by texting MK to 989898. If you want safety and to protect your savings for your family and future generations, text MK to 989898 and see if Birch Gold Group is right for you and for the family you love. Text the letters MK to 989898 for your free info kit from Birch Gold. Fellas, welcome back.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so fun to have you here live.
Yeah. I didn't know what it was going to be like today because we booked this a while ago, but we didn't know what the outcome would be like. So I didn't know if you'd be in a mood or if you would be jubilant.
Oh, I'm in a mood.
That was a very enthusiastic read. That top was like, wow, I think she's happy about what happened.
That soundbite is my favorite soundbite of campaign 2024. Joy cometh in the morning.
Where's your Sean Hannity football? You should be like spiking in.
I've got something better. Look, I have the Kamala Harris bobble doll. Look at her. The little bobblehead. And this was Kamala Harris last night.
I can almost hear her laughing.
Yeah. Ah! That's how it went. Sorry, but it was rough.
Hurt, by the way.
It was a rough night for Team Blue. There's so much to go over. Can we just start with the total and utter collapse of polling? Polling
again
is a lie. They don't know anything. Only Henry Olsen, our guest, who I loved, knew what he was talking about. Nate Silver didn't know what he was talking about. Nate Cohn over at the New York Times, and Ann Seltzer of the Des Moines Register.
Wow.
A total and utter fail.
Where is Ann Seltzer today? Someone do a wellness check to see if she's still around. You know, Nate Silver was right about one thing, I think, when he said that, you know, what's happening with these polls is nobody wants to go out on a limb because they all want to be in the same space. That seems to be true. But he said he ran 80,000 simulations.
Yeah, simulations.
And they came up like exactly 40,000 each or 40,001 each. Yeah, no, the polling stuff is appalling because the only people that were right, and they were almost not entirely right because we're looking at something that we're slightly surprised by, which is popular vote, was Polymarket.
The crypto
market.
Yes.
If you watched Polymarket, and that is the kind of wisdom of the crowd, they were right. And whatever the competitor is another version of it too.
By the way, my husband, Doug Brunt, obsessed. It was
How much did he win?
It was his comfort blanket throughout the whole, past 2 months. Like Polymarket though, but Polymarket.
I knew he put 20 grand on Jill Stein. I thought that was a risk, but he said it's going to pay big. So.
It was in Dearborn. It wasn't quite
she
wrong.
came in second
That's
place.
true.
Second place.
Can you believe that? Dearborn goes for Trump.
Yes.
And Jill Stein, Kamala, nowhere to be found.
No.
Just one more minute on the polls because they'd been warned. They'd been warned year after year that they had it wrong, that they shouldn't underestimate Donald Trump, that there was a secret Trump voter that doesn't like to deal with pollsters. And notwithstanding the fact that some got it, like Atlas got it, and as I pointed out, our guest Henry Olsen, he got it. You had hard partisans like Larry Sabato, who lost his mind. He's also known as the My Pillow guy. They may or may not be the same person. Who, of course, they were doing these so-called polls through their lens of what they want to be. And they've been out. Who will pay attention to these people again?
I had an inkling on Monday night of some of this. I don't know what we call the quiet Trump poll respondent, but we hosted a thing.
Shy Trump voter,
right? So we hosted a live Reason Roundtable podcast taping in the Comedy Cellar, the Village Underground in New York. And at the beginning, I was like, all right, who voted here? Give me a show of hands for Kamala Harris. There was surprisingly a lot. For Donald Trump, crickets. There was no way in a group of libertarians, conservatives, independents that there's going to be zero Trump voters. And afterwards, when I talked to people, the Trump voters all came up to me. And they're like, oh, yeah, I was voting.
Can I tell you something? I have a friend in Hollywood, and she sent me a text today saying, I have to pretend that I'm sad. I'm pretending I'm sad with all my friends. She's a conservative who's got to stay underground. And that's just the way some of these circles work. Now, I don't know if that's how they work all over the Midwest, which is not.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah.
But I do think, like, we had a woman call in yesterday from Wisconsin, and she's like, yeah, I lied to the pollsters. I just kind of want to mess with them. I don't care. Like, they're kind of against these pollsters. But the smart ones figure out ways around that. You cannot believe in these people. I really do believe it was their own bias that pushed them into these, either subconscious or conscious bias that pushed them into manipulating all of us or trying to save her ass, which was unsavable.
Not trying to, succeeding. I mean, that is the manipulation that you can't avoid, right? I mean, if the only information out in the ether is this is what's happening and everyone lined up agrees, we cannot, in this Pavlovian response, say, well, this has happened in the past. This is the only information we have to go on. So we're all talking about these polls. I don't know if you were, but we have been. And everywhere that I have seen, we're talking about the polls. And we're not saying like, well, there's like a shy Trump voter, but it's even on those margins. Like, this is a blowout.
It's a blowout.
51% is just,
it's a landslide.
51%. It's a landslide. We're talking about all the blue wall states. We don't know. I mean, like every swing state.
He won 7 out of 7 swing states.
7 out of 7. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And we were told it was so tight. Every poll said it was tight. No one said he was running away with it. No one predicted.
And Seltzer told me that Jill Stein was going to win. Go back to Jill Stein. So,
sorry, Kmele, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask. I mean, I do wonder about the bounces that we saw in the polling to the extent these things were happening. And it seems like maybe some of them were converging on what seemed to be the popular knowledge at the time. But after the DNC, there did seem to be a lot of enthusiasm. You did seem to see that folks were going from being very skeptical of Kamala Harris to actually believing in Kamala Harris for a little bit. After that debate performance against Trump, you did seem to see like a lot of energy in the ether for her. So I wonder whether or not there might be some truth to what the polls were saying, despite the fact that there were probably certain people that were never responding to the polls.
I mean,
or maybe been lying.
Let's talk about it all. I can't wait to discuss every single aspect of this. We're going to get to the media and their reaction to what we're saying. But
so great.
Let's talk about how this happened. Because if you look at the coalition that put Trump over the edge, it was working class men and women. It was black men. And it was Latinos, especially men, but also women. There was not some huge disproportionate female vote that helped her. The women did go more for Kamala than they did for Trump, but it was not the huge disparate number that would have counterbalanced his strength with men. And those people, they were getting polled. It's not like the pollsters didn't understand to reach out to the working class or Latinos. They've been polled. So when did this happen? Like, do you think it was a late breaking thing, or do you think we were in a mirage the whole time?
The whole time. I have been banging on about this since I did a documentary in 2001 when I went to Starr County, the most Hispanic county in America.
2021.
21, sorry.
Yeah, 21. You mentioned this on the show one time.
I did. And I've been, what I saw there kind of changed my mind on so much, because I talked to people, and these were not shy Trump voters. They were Tejanos, like, Mexican Americans who had been there a couple generations. They were recent immigrants, and they were all in for MAGA. And you look at what happened. I mean, Hillary Clinton won, I think, by 40 points or something. Biden still won, but it was, by about 5, 6, something like that. Donald Trump won Starr County, the most Hispanic county in America. Donald Trump won last night. That is shocking. You look at the other details here, and we don't pay attention to where we live, but the elites in New York City. I mean, we're in Connecticut now, but in New York City, look at what happened in New York City last night. The best showing for a Republican since 1988.
Yeah,
right?
It's incredible.
Look at New Jersey.
And New Jersey's the same. All of the states. We're not talking about just the blue wall states, which are shocking us, just the Sun Belt states, which are shocking us a little less, but we're seeing it everywhere, all across. I mean, New York State is the same. I mean, Matt, we were talking about this on the way in.
Connecticut too.
I mean, the numbers are all going in one direction, which is why we have the popular vote the way it is. That was the thing the polling market got wrong. The popular
just
vote,
FYI, he's winning the popular vote right now by 5 million.
By 5 million. That is no small amount.
That's going to be insane. A huge wake-up call. And I actually invite people who are drowning in their tears today to be somewhat happy that it wasn't close, right? That I was rooting for Harris to win. I didn't vote for her. Had no thought about it. Communist. Listen,
you're red.
Can't work with this.
But as much as anything, I was rooting for whatever happened to be decisive, so we wouldn't have a bunch of stop the steal nonsense on either direction or Stacey Abrams nonsense. But I wanted anyone to understand their loss, and there needs to be, with media, with a whole lot of identity politics in particular, there needs to be an understanding of this loss. The way your theory of the case of America, your theory of why people are voting for Trump, it's over now because it's 51%. Over. You have to deal with that. He was at 46.8 and 46.3 in the previous elections. 51 is absolutely decisive. It means your theory of the case is wrong. You can slice it and dice it and say, oh, the women did this and the Hispanics did this. No, America did this.
Yes. Well, let me tell you something. It doesn't seem to be going well, your theory that people need to accept.
They don't have to.
I give you stop 13. Take a listen. Oh, watch.
We may not have rights tomorrow. I'll be ending
tomorrow? Today?
I just want to face crying. My am is fucking scared. Like we're scared for our lives. We're scared for our friends. Like
oh my God.
I might wake up a motherfucking slave.
What?
I can't get it up. I'm moving to get it up.
Oh, the dog.
I am 48 years old, and I have
this is genuinely heartbreaking.
No,
experienced anything like this. I never thought I would in this country.
America was
they're playing the music
for a female black president, and that is what I was worried about. Because the country is full of racist misogynists, men and women.
Yes. That's it, sister. I think it's a sister. Unclear.
Misogynist women.
I don't think it's not. They're not accepting loss well.
Wow.
It's not going well.
No, I think America is full of people that have mental health issues.
Yeah.
The beginning was great.
On camera.
I love it. The first woman had a Shining t-shirt on. Did you see that? And she's screaming, and I was like, oh my God, it's her favorite movie.
We're the ones who are in danger.
Good Lord.
I might wake up tomorrow a slave.
A slave. By the way.
I'm going to get killed?
Yeah, Kmele, we got to talk about that slave thing. I'm sorry.
Big announcement.
Just so you know, slavery is back. You've got like a couple of months. Yeah.
It doesn't even need to be inaugurated again. It's today.
Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, not to be confused with Matt Welch of Reason and of the Fifth Column. He sent out a tweet today saying, okay, now that we've won, here's the truth. We are implementing Project 2025.
It starts today.
That will be clipped by about 1,000 people people see they're doing it. But why? We shouldn't be surprised by this at all. I mean, I have been collecting the best thing. I mentioned this. I did the Free Press live stream last night. And anyone who would listen, I was pointing out that the previous morning, Michael Beschloss, the historian, used to be a credible historian, comes on mornings, I presume it's Morning Joe, that's where all the lunatics go. And he was like, Donald Trump is going to ban historians. Yeah. Did you see that? And I was like, if it starts with you, okay. It's like dictator on day one, just one in Michael Beschloss. But people are like, no one pushed back on this idea.
Yeah. No, right.
They're like, yes, gravely intoning. Yeah, no, it's going to be very bad. There's going to be no more history. And Joe Scarborough is like, it's going to be like Jeff Bezos. They'll be afraid to publish you. And it's like, guys, there's a fucking internet. Do you guys know about this? You can go post something, put it online. But that response is because of people talking like that.
So my favorite, now this is not a reaction to last night's news, but this guy, you'll know, was on MSNBC. He was talking to Nicole Wallace, and he was predicting that he was going to have to leave the country if Trump won. Look at SOT 12. It is Michael Cohen.
What do you think happens to you if he wins?
Well, I'm out of here. I mean, I'm already working on a foreign passport with a completely different name. I don't know how it's going to work as far as dealing with my wife and my children. I certainly don't want them moving to where I'm looking to go.
So you're out of here. You'd leave the country.
I have no choice.
Yeah.
Unbelievable state of being. Michael Cohen.
I'll still be available to you, but by remote.
Right, by encrypted remote.
What a
I mean, I'm not going to give up my airtime.
I'm leaving my wife, but I'll be available to you.
On it. Yeah. When you say you're working
Did he just admit to passport fraud?
Yes.
By the way?
Yes. Not your name. You're not working on it. You get it or you don't.
This is the level of freak out, right? This is the level of leftist freak out. Now, one of the most interesting things I saw this morning, though, is, and I loved Morning Joe. I loved watching them try to keep it together. And you know how he gaslit us? And he was like, the best Biden ever.
Sharpest of them. Yeah.
He was one of the worst single actors, as was Kamala Harris, but yes.
Yeah. And then the switcheroo happened, and he was like, Kamala, she's great. Yes, this is an amazing move. Yes, as if he had never done the other stuff, right? That's kind of what he tried today.
Yep.
Where he was like, I've been telling the Democrat Party that they've been too far over to the left. They're lunatics, and they're going to keep losing. Hello, it was ultimate gaslighting. Hold on, we've got a little bit of it. I think it's SOT 6.
Every Democrat that we have ever sat down with dinner with over the past 5 years who have kids that go to colleges say their kids are afraid to speak in class because they'll be canceled. She'll be destroyed in social media by noon, so they just sit in class quiet. Now, if any of you, which camera? Give me a camera to look at. Boom! I'll look at that one. If any of you out there say, oh, that's just like a conservative, white, Southern guy, da-da-da, that's what you're losing. That's what you're losing. Because that's what I heard. And I didn't hear it from Republicans. I didn't hear it from Trumpers. I heard it from Democrats over the past 3 or 4 years. Their kids were afraid to talk in class.
No, the Democrats have got to stop all this spending.
As we've said on the show 1,000 times, Democrats should be smarter on the women's athletics thing. 85% of Americans oppose men transitioning after puberty and competing against
women.
Welcome
to the team, Joe.
Immigration has been a terrible decision for Democrats. I don't know who they think they were playing to
Fox News.
when they let millions of people come cruising through the border.
Listen, we spent a lot of time talking about abortion rights. America decided not to blame Donald Trump.
Right.
America decided, okay, I can vote to protect abortion rights and also vote for him, and we're not going to have these immigrants marauding us, and we're not going to have our kids turning trans when they go to school.
So I'm not sure they were playing to anything that was smart here in terms of an open border, and that's what it is, an open border. And I think it's a bad decision. I hope they learn from it.
Amazing.
Can I point something out? I hadn't seen that first clip with Joe Scarborough. And I started having heart palpitations, and I'm very hungover, so it's very dangerous.
Yeah. We'll get you some hair of the dog.
Oh, my God, I feel terrible. But I have to say, when he's saying, I have been hearing this, you have a fucking TV show.
Right?
Why are you not telling us?
Well, why would
everybody on these panels knows what went wrong, and they didn't tell us when they had a fucking TV show. Exactly right. Why are you telling us now? You're like, everyone's discovered. She's like, the trans thing is like, you could have talked about it. Megyn Kelly has a whole show about it.
I know.
God,
if only I had a way of getting my message out.
Good Lord, what is wrong with these people?
It's amazing for them to look us in the face and be like, we tried to warn you.
Yes.
What?
We always knew. We just didn't want to tell you.
All you said was Hitler.
Yes. That's when you know, by the way, it's not news. And I mean very seriously about this, is that you know that it's partisan. You know that, MSNBC's on this side, Fox is on the other. But you cannot pretend to be news when you're only talking about issues that will get a candidate elected.
Yeah.
And only saying the day after, well, we've been hearing this the whole time.
I know.
But we were trying to get somebody elected. You are a television station that is working in service of a candidate. Fine, just label it that way.
We had lots of conversations about it at our dinner table. But that's quite helpful. Yeah. See how that worked out for you.
What's very strange, though, is that Joe does seem to be trying to have it both ways. Like, he's blaming Democrats for the loss, but he is also talking openly about the fact that he insists there are racist, misogynist Latino men, and they are the reason why they didn't manage to win this election. I'm not sure how it can be both things.
Can we look at that? We've got, I don't know if it's just him. We have a lot. We have a lot. I got you covered, you guys. I mean, soon we're going to have to replay Joy Cometh in the Morning, but for now we will do the racist, misogynistic montage. Let's watch.
Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country, and anybody who thinks that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong.
There was a lot of gender bias in this. There was a lot of race bias in this. And we've got to be honest, among Hispanic men and black men, there's a lot of misogyny.
Would you like me to say it? I think you want to say it. Well, if she were a 6'4" white man from Arkansas, do you think she would be losing by that much? If she could like chew tobacco and carry a shotgun and talk about football and be a guy's guy, I mean, you tell me.
You mean be a different candidate?
Zero evidence to support any of those assertions. Yeah. All they're looking at are the demographics. And what the demographics do seem to suggest is that a lot of people decided they don't like Kamala Harris. People who are entirely comfortable voting for Barack Obama. Many people who are probably comfortable voting for a Hillary Clinton. People who just don't like Kamala Harris.
Who would have run to vote for Michelle Obama.
Yeah, she underperformed everywhere. There was every indication before she was selected that she was a bad candidate. She was one of the first people to get bounced from the Democratic primary. The only reason she got selected
and what group made that decision?
That was everyone.
That was Democrats.
That was everyone.
Right? I mean,
all of the Democrats, narrowly.
They're looking at the country now like you're a bunch of racists. Yeah. And to blame the Hispanic men, like what? Why is it
Joe
their fault?
Scarborough did the same thing. I think that Al Sharpton answer, and it's always a very crisp, cogent answer from Al Sharpton, but that answer was in response to Joe Scarborough saying we have to deal with the fact that Hispanic men are misogynists and can be racist, and they can be racist against black people, and we're slicing it thinner and thinner and thinner. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this turned out to be true. I think it is, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. The last that I saw is that she didn't outperform a single county in America.
Yep.
It is bigger than this. Mm-hmm. Guys, you're doing, at the same time, Joe Scarborough says, we have to stop all this, psycho-progressive stuff that alienates people, and then they go and do it.
Yeah.
And you say, that's why they're like, that clip that you play of Kamala, which I hope you play over and over again, the joy in the morning.
Might be our theme song now.
She is just so awkward. Beyond being a bad candidate for 1,000 policy reasons, that we don't even know her policy, she's just not an appealing candidate. Full stop. She's bad at it. And then they picked Tim Walz to make it even worse.
Stand by. We need to watch it one more time.
Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The path may seem hard, the work may seem heavy, but joy cometh in the morning, and church morning is on its way.
The arms extended.
You guys, you're busy men, so you may not have seen our other favorite montage of her accents, but let's just have some fun. We earned it.
But
let's watch.
Yeah.
Do we have the accents?
Yeah. Can I see the accents?
For the suffering of other people, have you no sense of purpose?
You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
I love you back.
We're going to beat them in November.
We're going to beat them.
We'll beat them in November. And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
We gonna do it again.
Brothers and sisters. And my sorors.
Oh, God, she's so hot.
And to all my HBCU brothers and sisters.
I mean, it's a real mystery why she lost.
I can't. The one when she was in Ireland, and she's like, I'm talking all to you. Like, you gotta vote. It's gotten fucking crazy, like. And it's like, oh, Kamala, you're so... Camille, that first one was a Jamaican accent, wasn't it?
Is that what she was doing?
I think she was doing a Jamaican accent.
Yes, it was Jamaican.
Yeah.
Have you no decency, man, or whatever.
It was literally the worst Jamaican. You think my Jamaican accent's bad.
The point is, there wasn't an authentic bone. There isn't an authentic bone in her body. We still don't know who Kamala Harris is.
No.
It's not misogynistic or racist to observe that.
No.
And it's not being persnickety to say that maybe she should have done some interviews and talk to people. Since she didn't compete in a primary.
This is where you lose me.
I lose you because you don't think that she should have done interviews?
Because going out there and talking is what really sealed her fate.
No, I mean, it would have absolutely sealed her fate, but that would have given American voters more to work with. If she was a good candidate, I mean, I saw someone tweeting yesterday that, you know, this is back when they thought that she was going to win, that it was a very clever move of her not to go on Joe Rogan because it was just going to be a trap. In some senses, it's true. Her unscripted for 3 hours would be a disaster in kind of any setting. As far as we know, we've never really seen a 3-hour Kamala Harris that works out. But that is part of what primary campaigns and also the media campaign do. They're supposed to toughen up a candidate. Moynihan mentioned Tim Walz earlier. Remember his deer in the headlights performance at the vice presidential campaign because he too was cloistered. One of the positive things about this drubbing is that it's going to make sure that the next Democratic media strategy can't be the same. You can't just put your candidate in the bunker.
Yeah,
right? They did it.
They really did it twice in a row.
They did it twice in a row. Yep. And they had a lot of media, including people who interviewed her, like Stephanie Ruhle, say, that's a good strategy. Yeah. Let's do it that way.
I didn't even want to talk
terrible.
to her.
That was anti-democratic.
So crazy.
And voters absolutely rejected it. Tim Walz had a great slogan that I wish he believed in. And I think that the Americans kind of showed how much they didn't believe it, which is we say mind your own damn business here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Democrats never actually let Americans mind their own damn business. And calling the people who don't vote Democrats racist is part of that. Mm-hmm. If you wake up in the morning and suddenly there's a new encyclopedia drops on your desk about the acceptable terms that you must use to everybody, and if you do it wrong, a whole bunch of people are going to point their fingers and either laugh at you or say that you have committed a transgression against other people. If you bum them out in their workplace, if you change the rules under which they compete in high school, if you do all kinds of, you are not letting them mind their own damn business. Mm-hmm. There is a live and let live ethos that is natural to America, and it should have been at some point natural to Democrats. It is not at all. They are constantly the HR manager, pointing their fingers and telling you what to do, and people are sick of it.
Sick of it.
Yes.
Across the country.
Yeah.
Here's one of the things that we're hearing this morning. I heard it on Morning Joe and elsewhere. She hit all her marks.
She ran a great campaign.
You can't blame Kamala Harris. She
That's
hit
incredible.
all her marks. How on earth can they say that? I mean, I take you back to her performance on The View with a very friendly interviewer. Sunny Hostin was all in for Kamala Harris, and this was one of the defining moments of her 107-day campaign. Watch.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's
amazing.
Very strange.
I mean, first of all, to not be prepared for that question.
She did not hit all her marks.
She did not hit. I mean, also, Sunny Hostin had to read that question off a card. Really? You couldn't remember that one?
Because it was mildly challenging. She never would have come up with that on her own.
Saying, I don't know.
I'm scared. I know you're not going to nail this.
She was shaking like I am right now from being hungover. But that amazing thing is that, people have talked about that quite a bit, and it will become a cliche quickly, but it shouldn't be, because it's absolutely true. But what she had to do was differentiate herself, because what they did was said that they're not in power, right? I'm not in power. She took credit for being vice president when it mattered, right? When she thought she could gain something. Afghanistan and the debate, she was like, what Joe did, and I was like, oh, it's not yours anymore.
And also, I've met with presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and kings.
Yes, the prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. She had on one day. That's leadership. But like, this is honest. Like, she doesn't have if you came out there and said, look, we have to be honest. We should have handled the border differently.
Yes.
Americans are forgiving. We're a forgiving people. If you present that in a way that says, I need to correct this, and that's why I'm running.
Just to say, I was in the second position. Yeah. All right, I'm sorry, but let's be honest. I was never given the job of setting policy. I was given the job of supporting him in his policy setting, and I did that. But now that I'm being asked, what will I do, and I can see what's happened to the country, here's exactly what I'll do.
Sure. Kamala Harris has been a prominent figure in American politics for a little while now. She ushered into the Senate in 2016, along with Donald Trump being ushered into the presidency. But I've watched tape of her talking in 2011 about her Smart on Crime book, and she was cogent. And she was even compelling. She was a pretty good speaker. She was also a totally different person. The policies she was talking about at that time, when she was locking up parents for not having their kids go to school regularly, she was defending them, saying, we need to stop making this all about politics when we talk about criminal justice reform. We shouldn't make this about kind of race and identity. It's the polar opposite of the things that she would be saying in 2020. And it's very strange. And I don't know that there's necessarily a connection. Maybe it's something else entirely, that she could do that when she was being somewhat reasonable on policy. And by the time she gets to 2020 and she's crowing about how amazing these demonstrators are who are in the streets in late June, after you've already seen police precincts burned to the ground, and she's saying they're going to stay in the streets, they're going to be there before the election, they'll be there after the election. It's strange that she is someone now who can barely string words together in a coherent way.
Why? Where
I don't
are her
really
words?
know what's going on.
I think politics destroys people. She's trying to please everybody.
Not everybody is like that. J.D. Vance got into politics and began shining more than he ever had.
He had a rough start.
But it's been a sort of short ride for him, too, because he was a novelist. He had different political
outlets. He's not going to turn into that bobblehead that just fell off my desk.
The thing that can't be explained is how she became so inarticulate, because Camille sent me this clip, and she did seem like a different person. But when you're trying to be something to everybody, she couldn't hammer down any position because she didn't want to alienate everybody.
This goes back to my Phil Houston, who's the spy the lie guy. He was CIA deception detection inventor and teacher for 25 years. And on the inside of the agency, detecting our foreign spies, inside the agency, double agents and so on. And he always says that a truth teller runs toward the truth. That you can hear the difference in the way a truth teller talks to you. They're not trying to avoid the soft spot. They're like, yeah, let's go right to the soft spot because it's actually not soft for me at all. I'm completely rock solid right there. Let's go. And she spoke like somebody who was constantly deceiving. Like she had something to hide and she really didn't want you to press that issue. And people perceive that. You don't have to be Phil Houston, the spy the lie guy, to know it. You just know it on a gut level. She didn't have the confidence or the positions that she could share.
And like Joe Biden and like a lot of Democrats over the last 10 and arguably 20 years, she is running as an anti-thing. I'm not Trump. So I'm going to keep the coalition together by not alienating anybody, and I'm just going to not be Trump. And at some point, you can't just run as the opposite. Democrats did this under George W. Bush, too, who we've forgotten now, but he was a divisive, polarizing, and also popular president. And so we're not going to be Bush. And that's not good enough. All right. You can't just say, I'm not going to be this guy, especially when your guy is the president. And Americans have a very strong negative attitude about the current economy, definitely about the future economy. I think Gallup came out with numbers this week where like 63% thinks the economy is going to get worse. They're feeling terrible about Congress and even worse about the media. So if you have all of that, it's not good enough to say that you're not this other person who's been the president in the past. You've got to have some kind of articulable vision. Donald Trump is not, for whatever, love him and hate him, he's not running as I am not the Democrat. I am Donald Trump. I am saying crazy things all the time. I'm making you laugh. You like my policies. You hate my policies.
But there were policies.
But
it was a policy election from him in a way.
It is a policy election, and it's also his personality election, too. You don't have any sense that he's like trying not to alienate constituencies when he's out there. He's a personality, and people, Nate Silver had, I think, the best kind of summation of his appeal is that he's like a billboard lawyer, right? Like you don't get him necessarily because you think that he's the most polished and articulate. You get him because he's going to go punch somebody in the mouth. But that is a positive vision of, he's his own personality. personality. She did not run on a personality.
Authentic and familiar versus inauthentic and maybe completely alien. She's the vice president, but you have no idea who this person is.
And with no plan, right? I mean, time after time when she did put herself out there and she was asked, what exactly, on the border, like, why didn't you do it earlier? You say now that you're going to be John Wayne. You're going to go down there, you're going to crack some skulls and get it, And why didn't you do it earlier? She didn't have an answer. It led to one of the most infamous, in my view, exchanges. It was at the CNN town hall. And this is the best she could come up with after having been pressed on this by Stephanie Rule and others. This is not her first crack at it. Why not earlier? I love it. Take a look at, 104.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years. You were vice president, not the president. But why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
She is so bad at this. I just want to say that the art of bullshitting, my friend Eli Lake has one of the best podcasts I've listened to in a very long time about the difference between lying and bullshitting. It's up on the Honestly feed, Barry Weiss's feed. And he has this kind of deep investigation on how politicians bullshit and why that's different from lying. You have to be able to bullshit. His argument, which I agree with, is that Americans not only tolerate bullshit, they actually kind of like it. They don't like lying. And that is not good bullshit. She has no idea where to go. And she's like, we've done things, but we'll do more. But why didn't we do them in the past? Because we're going to do them in the future. And it's like, wait, what?
They need to be done.
That was good. That was not bad. I should actually run. But the thing is, it's like the kid who, you're a teacher, and he doesn't bring the homework in. And he's like, I'll get it to you tomorrow. Doesn't get it. And then the third day, I'll get it to you. You just stop believing them.
Yeah, right.
You had the years. You didn't do anything. Why would I believe you now?
And honestly, it's like I object to your laziness and not preparing a better answer.
Yeah,
if you're going to spin me, at least put some effort into
They
that.
must have had these sessions, because this is what happens with politicians before debates and before town halls, that they're drilled by the people around them. Those have to have happened.
No, but you remember the reporting on how she doesn't like to do her homework.
Yes. And that's what I'm like, there are people telling her what to say, and she just, not listening, I guess.
The only homework she appears to have done is to have studied those note cards before the debate, to memorize
debate
10 to 12 canned answers that she could just deliver. And she was good at that. She did remember her lines, but she could never do it in the interview context. I never understood why they just didn't do that prior to the interviews. There's not a huge range of subjects you're going to get asked about. You might fall down on the job and maybe 2 or 3 that we didn't prepare you for. But if you memorize these 12 note cards on the core subjects, you can do well with Anderson Cooke. You could even do well with Brett Baer. She didn't, or they didn't. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's all, it leads us to the same place. So I want to make this point. Going back to the new Scarborough, I told you, I completely understand everybody. The trans insanity and better messaging on inflation. They bring back Chris Matthews, who, everybody's bringing back the guys they fired.
I was so happy to see him. It's been
Stelter's back on CNN and Matthews is back on MS. The morning show, it's like the left hand's not talking to the right hand. The morning show needs to talk to the evening shows because Joy Reid is not pulling away.
This is not a Joy campaign anymore.
She is not pulling away from the core messaging. This was one of her initial reactions last night. Let's play SOT 9.
Black voters came through for Kamala Harris. White women voters did not. That is what it appears happened in that state, is that if you can't flip enough white women, and we've talked about this on this set numerous times, is that you have a state where you've got a 6-week abortion or a 12-week abortion. I think theirs might be 12 weeks. But it's a state where women lost their reproductive rights, where there was a very heavy push to get women to focus on not putting in place, re-electing, putting back into the White House the person who was responsible for taking those rights away and restoring them. But that message obviously was not enough to get enough white women to vote for Vice President Harris, a fellow woman. This will be the second opportunity that white women in this country have to change the way that they interact with the patriarchy.
And they didn't do it. That's the problem. The white women are the problem because they don't understand how to interact with the patriarchy. Which I don't think that's going to be a winning message during the 4 years we're about to have of Trump, but she's going to double down. And it's not just Joy Reid over on MSNBC, the ladies of The View.
Love them.
You're here. I had to do it.
By the way, we were in the other room and it was literally on. And it was like, when you come to Megyn Kelly's, The View is on.
She likes to hurt us.
Yes, Sunny Hostin was reading a card about something.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sunny Hostin, take a look at SOT 15.
I worry not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. I think that going forward, the convicted felon box on employment applications better be taken off, because if you can be the president of the United States, then you should not be prevented from employment in this country. I'm worried about mass deportation and internment camps, and I'm also worried about Elon Musk warning Americans to prepare for temporary hardship.
Everyone's wearing black. She's in mourning. She's worried about her daughter, who is a multimillionaire. I mean, her parents are multimillionaires. Her home looks like Mar-a-Lago. It's this a massive, sprawling estate. Yeah. She lives in New York, where we have abortion on demand all the way
I'm
to the
not
end
sure
of
what
pregnancy.
she's talking about.
But the people that tend to the garden, they're not going to have all the rights.
The people that tend to the garden.
Yeah. The people that are mowing her lawn.
She's upset about that.
The working class that she cares
Even though they voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, you know what? This is, if you want to learn a lesson from this election. Now, I mean, to go back before, I cannot stand we blame a group for something. The white women.
Oh, yeah, the white women.
No, it's just they are the problem. I mean, what are we at? Like 75 million votes for Donald Trump now? And the white women are the problem?
It's white.
I can't stand it. But one lesson has to be learned, and they're still in the habit of it now. So the next day, you're going to get it. Morning Joe, you're going to get it. I mean, they're actually a little confused. Morning Joe, you have Joe Scarborough doing the race kind of hustling thing and then saying this is the problem. But I'll tell you what people don't like. 75 million people voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Do you want to call them fascist sympathizers? Because fascism means one thing, and we know what they're telegraphing. They're telegraphing Hitler. The New Republic had Donald Trump's face with a Hitler mustache on it. They were less subtle. We have this thing every day when it's like, the historians are going to be thrown in prison. They're going to round us journalists up and put us in camps.
And she just said
no one cares about you. Literally, no one gives a shit. Stop thinking that anyone cares what you think. We care about you because we get to make fun of you. Because you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. I'm very exercised this morning because I'm hungover and because I hate these people so much. But can we stop this? The Hispanics, there are minorities. They're this, that, and the other. You talk to Hispanic people, they're like, what? Did you see there's a Harvard study about the use of the word Latinx?
Yeah, they're not.
And it went like
2%.
If it was like anyone even around it, it negatively rebounded on everything around them.
How many times do I have to tell you it's Latinx?
Is that
well, there's a debate.
It's not that we don't know for sure.
No, it's not settled.
No, because no one uses it, so we actually don't know how to say it.
Even that is still under debate. Hold on. Speaking of Latinos, take a listen to Harry Enton over on CNN summarizing what happened. I know he's been doing a great job. SOT 17.
Look at this. Kamala Harris won Latinos in Pennsylvania, but just by 15 points. If you go back 4 years ago, among Latinos in Pennsylvania, Joe Biden's margin was, get this, John, 42 points. Donald Trump winning among Latinos in Florida by 18 points. Now, you might say, Latinos in Florida, Cubans. As you two were pointing out, it wasn't just Cubans. But keep in mind, 4 years ago, Joe Biden carried Latinos in the great state of Florida. So Donald Trump flipped it. How about Texas? Look here. Again, another win for Donald Trump. We are seeing this movement across the map. Remember, 8 years ago, Latinos were one of the biggest trouble spots for Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. Miami-Dade, he lost that by 30 points 8 years ago? Tonight or last night, he carried Miami-Dade. We're just seeing this explosion of Latino support for Donald Trump. And the bottom line is we've been talking about realignment among Hispanics. Definitely realignment.
This is what realignment looks like.
Realignment.
I mean, maybe they too don't understand the patriarchy and how they interact with it.
And with Sunny Hostin, she's talking about she's worried about the working class. What is the realignment? The realignment is a working class realignment.
Yep.
I mean, that the Latinos have more of a working class than the whites and the white women and everybody else.
But this is yet another liberal elite bullshit line of like, you're too stupid to know what's good for you.
Yes.
The gardener is
Over and
dumb.
over again.
I need to tell the gardener how
Americans
to vote.
love being condescended to. It's just going to work over and over again.
But why do you think that the Latinos have moved over to Trump in such massive numbers?
Patrick Ruffini, I think, has done a lot of the best work on this. He has a book that came out, I think, last December about the working class realignment. It's cultural issues. It is as much as it's Latinx, like to the extent.
Hello.
To the extent that that is something that people have ever heard about, it's like, what are you even talking about? And again, it's things that affect you in your cultural life and in your workplace, and you don't understand it and you don't like it, and it feels like a them has imposed it upon you. I said this before the election. Donald Trump could always depend on having a bigger vote among people who are mad at them. I know so many people, we all know so many people who live in New York who hate the way that New York is governed, the city, the state, or whatever. And if you wanted to express how you don't like things are governed in New York, how did you vote? Yesterday, you voted for Trump. Even though, what's he going to do to New York? Who knows? But if you're mad at them, and the them tend to be the people who control culture more, media, Hollywood, and also big city governance, you express this by Trump, because them have been bumming you out. They've been kind of getting in your kitchen. They've been condescending to you for a long time, and you're sick of it.
The cultural
so
thing is very interesting because they're mostly Catholic, mostly legit, and I'm Catholic. And you go to Mass on Sundays, and you hear when they get into the culture stuff, they are not pro-trans. They do not believe God makes mistakes in creating human beings, they don't buy into any of the trans insanity. Trust me, because when I was first getting the papers for my annulment, which I am actually in the process of trying to do on my first marriage. Doug and I are good.
I was like, what happened?
Moynihan wakes up.
We're good.
So, Megyn, this is a new America.
Joy is coming.
Joy is coming to the Moynihan household.
I looked into I went to this period where I was like, I don't know, am I really Catholic? Do I really want to do this? This is absurd that they're making me do this. And I shopped around for some other religions within the Christianity. And I wound up sticking with my faith that I was born into because they're hardcore on the issues that I'm hardcore on too. Like, I appreciate that they are holding the line on the trans insanity. And so are my fellow people in the Latinx community. And not just that, but on immigration. Latinos are like Trump
this is
on immigration.
I do think that the biggest loser yesterday might be identity politics writ large. I mean, there's a very real sense in which Kamala Harris is an identity politics candidate. Her entire legacy in the Senate, to the extent she has one, is just trying to position herself with respect to what activists are interested in along those lines. And it's interesting just how kind of absurd the notion of Latino is as a category. I don't know if it's as absurd as like Asian, because there's so many, the geographic territory is different, but it might be about as absurd as Asian. The El Salvadorians are not Mexicans, are not Ecuadorians, are not Chileans. And even within those communities, Brazil is massive. It is incredibly diverse. And the fact that Democrats imagine they could message to this diverse constellation of people by just saying, Latinos, we know what you want. You're concerned about your fellow brethren who are trying to cross the border illegally. We don't want them to come illegally. We want them to come the way that we did, or at least I'm here and maybe I came illegally, but I got legal real quick. And this isn't working out particularly well. It isn't happening in a way that's orderly. This is unacceptable. And the Democrats thought they could skate on that, and they simply cannot. And I heard someone else make the observation that the Democrats kept messaging to them as if they were this one monolithic bloc. The Republicans were messaging to them the same way they messaged to everybody else. These are the issues that matter to you. We understand it. We're going to do something to address it, while the Democrats were telling you there is no crisis.
And trying to spin you up on abortion, which, by the way, is another thing the Catholics aren't so pro on.
I've been saying this for years, and I'm a broken record, but this is the Marxist concept of false consciousness. When Marx and Engels were asked, why are the working class not lining up behind you? They say, well, they're suffering from false consciousness. The capitalist press is tricking them into, and you continue to believe that, then you don't have to change your policies at all. So one of the things which they just project themselves and Park Slope onto Hispanics, because Hispanics are a minority group, and I'm really good. I care about minorities. What happened? Tony Hinchcliffe, right?
The comic
talked about this for how long? How much did we give this? You have Charlie Cooke coming on. Brilliant guy, but he lives in Florida. He's British, but trust him on this. He knows a lot about Florida.
He's American now.
He can never.
He's here,
not with that accent. No, with that accent, you can't do it. But Osceola County, which I think has one of the highest percentages of Puerto Ricans outside of Puerto Rico, flip for Trump.
Yep.
Apparently, they have a sense of humor. That doesn't mean the joke's funny. You can say it's not a funny joke, but I know it's a joke. And I got upset. I said this, and I was kind of booed by the crowd at Bill Maher. It was just kind of looking when Joe Biden. I
was booed by the crowd at Bill Maher.
Yeah, but they just
the
kind
best of us have been there.
They look at you very skeptically. But when Joe Biden said a speaker at this Madison Square Garden, a speaker, he's a comedian. It's not the same thing.
She did the same thing.
It's not the same thing. To say a speaker, say, oh, they're saying that. They're not stupid like that. They see this stuff and they say, yeah, that's a bad joke. But they're not like, oh my God, clutch the pearls, get the fainting couch, because that's how these people are. And they think people in Osceola County are the same way. They're not. I'm sorry to tell you.
All right, stand by. More with the guys from the Fifth Column coming up. You know how much my family and I love our dogs, right? I can't even imagine life without them. They've got a great life, but some dogs are not so lucky. And this is why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue. It is the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter and safety, and most of all, love. And they've been doing it for more than 45 years now. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions, and giving can bring tax benefits too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need. And check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love Thunder and Strudwick, but we want other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. So we have got to talk about the failure of the celebrity. Oprah Winfrey. You have no power. You do not have any control over this electorate. Neither do you, J-Lo. Let's take a look at Oprah's final closing message on the campaign trail.
We don't get to sit this one out. If we don't show up tomorrow, it is entirely possible that we will not have the opportunity to ever cast a ballot again. We are voting to save ourselves from this precipice of danger.
We are not listening to you. You do not have the influence you think you do. I got to play J-Lo too. Here we go. Oh, you matter.
I remember growing up thinking my president cared about me. Cared about my parents, cared about my neighbors and my community. Not just some Americans, but all Americans. I believe that our kids and this wonderfully progressive, innovative, and inclusive young generation deserve that too. And it is in our hands. It's our responsibility to provide that for them. He has consistently worked to divide us.
Yeah.
At Madison Square Garden, he reminded us who he really is and how he really feels. It wasn't just Puerto Ricans that were offended that day, okay? It was every Latino in this country. It was humanity and anyone of decent character.
All right, I had enough of her. We get the gist.
I am a mother. Yeah. I am a sister.
So it is the end. I'm a mother. I'm a sister, and you matter.
Yeah,
really where we went. They do it every time. They parade out the celebrities. I mean, from Taylor Swift to Beyonce to Oprah to J-Lo to Usher to Bruce Springsteen. That's why she got people at her rallies. By the way, Joe Scarborough this morning said, "Never tell me that the rally size matters again." By the way, we knew it didn't matter. Who went to Mitt Romney's rallies? I mean, they were enormous. Would never tell me that they matter. The reason her rallies were big is because Beyonce was there.
But she didn't perform.
No.
Had she performed, that might have made the difference.
But I mean, the rallies with just Kamala Harris were not big. And the celeb factor, it doesn't help. And I would argue hurts.
I think that watching that J-Lo thing, the first time in my life I've sympathized with Ben Affleck, which is pretty
gosh.
But the other thing that was interesting about that is she came out in support of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
J-Lo?
Yes.
Who was the president
when the 55-year-old J-Lo was growing up? She said, when I was growing up, our president cared about us. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. Oprah Winfrey, by the way, when Donald Trump was asked when he was running or flirting with running with the Reform Party, he was asked, who would your vice presidential pick be? And he said Oprah Winfrey. It's a bit of a stab in the back from them.
And she sent him a note.
Then or now?
Yeah, then, at the time.
Yeah,
a note about this.
Yeah,
very friendly, cozy.
And now, I mean, if there's no election, this ridiculousness that there's going to be no election. 4 years from now, I want them all to account for this because no one ever has to account for anything in political prognostication. That's wrong. We need to bring these people forward who said there's going to be no. I mean, her and Stedman, is that his name?
Yeah.
Steadfast?
Yeah.
They'll be on the moon. She's a billionaire. She doesn't worry about voting. She can literally take a rocket to a different planet. And we have to sit there and be like, oh my God, she understands this. But the one thing I will say, final thing about the celebrity stuff. What is the realignment? What are we talking about here? We're talking about working class voters. What really resonates with working class voters? Billionaires like Taylor Swift, billionaires like Oprah Winfrey, multi-millionaires like J-Lo. They understand our issues. It's like, screw you. You have private jets.
Yes.
I'm waiting to get on a Spirit flight. Yeah. Okay. And like and I got stabbed too during that week. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting off my jet to come to this rally and then leaving again. That doesn't resonate, not because they don't like them, not because they don't think they're talented, but they don't think they have anything to say about their own lives.
This is the Cardi B speech where she the teleprompter's not working. She has to read it off of the phone.
So dumb.
But then at some point she's like, yeah, I mean, the prices are too high, even for me. Seriously? Are you kidding right? Yeah. Even for me, at the prices at the grocery store, she promised me to my face she's going to stop the gouging. This is incredible. But I think we talked about this on your show when we were here shortly after the RNC, like the cultural firepower that conservatives actually have at their disposal now. Like the fact that you can appeal to a Dana White, to a Joe Rogan, even to an Elon Musk at this point, like they actually have power where it matters at the moment in YouTube. Like on the various podcasts,
TikTok,
like it's the Happy Dad guys,
Theo Vaughn,
all of this stuff has actually resonated with people. I have to believe that the Joe Rogan endorsement and certainly the Joe Rogan interview, it's something that you actually hear people referring to regularly.
Trump crushed it. He was
like
so
Trump being there for 3 hours. And was he exceptional for the entire time? No, but could Kamala Harris do it? Don't think so.
And that actually matters. I listened to that whole Joe Rogan episode, and I have to say, I thought Trump crushed it. He was so interesting. Joe Rogan was taking him all different places that I'm sure he did not give a heads up on.
Yeah.
And even if he had, Trump would not. No, but that's a real thing. And by the way, it's one of the reasons
he's like the whales. And I was like, what the hell?
But Trump knew his stuff. He knew his stuff. Trust me, as somebody who goes to the Jersey Shore every summer, these windmills are a menace. We're all working against them. They're coming to basically up and down the Jersey shoreline, which is one of the most beautiful coastlines in America. And they already killed them down in Cape May because they got very active down there. But they're still bringing a bunch of them. So it's an issue that we've been studying up on. And they are killing the whales. And Schellenberger did this whole documentary that talks in large part about it. I don't know how Trump knew about it or studied it, but he was able to go in depth on it without any direction. They were going there.
Do on Rogan. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you have to be
I
able
think
to do.
was her fear. And Rogan actually said, we invited her and we want her on. And I'm going to take it easy on her. I just want to have a conversation with her. I want to get to know her as a person. I don't think that was a setup. That's just his, his style. He's not somebody who's combative. And people said, oh, like you expect people to come to you. Imagine if you did one interview in the history of your very, very long podcast that is traveling to somebody else. Go see him. Go do it. You can't do it because you just don't have the personality for it. I'm sorry to say.
She couldn't. She spent time with the sex podcaster instead. She thought
call the ambulance or whatever it's
the
called.
woman who was talking about
the daddy
how
about
to
the
use
ambulance.
dildos a week earlier.
Don't stop insulting her. That sounds like a great show. We're different on this issue. By the way, the day that Trump, I thought he was like a real person, was on Theo Vaughn's show when Theo Vaughn was talking about doing drugs, and he started interviewing him.
Yes.
And he's like, this is some pretty bad stuff. This is bad stuff. And Theo's like, yeah, man, it's like, and I was like, what is happening? And I was like, this is great. She can't do that. You need to be able to do that.
Yes.
Sorry to say.
All right, let's talk about what's going to happen now because
that's right.
Another thing I heard over on MSNBC this morning was we are not like them. We are going to accept the results here. Hello, you were beaten in a landslide, right? Listen, if this were tight, there's no way they'd be going quietly in the night. The only way that would force them to do it is that it's a landslide. I mean, Trump crushed them and we are still awaiting the results in the House. That could take weeks because California cannot count. And we don't know how the House is going to land, but their New York Times latest is giving them a 57% chance, the Republicans, of holding it. Officially, now they just called Michigan FYI, but that was already understood to be in the Trump tally. So now he's got 292 electoral votes. It's going to keep going. So what was I saying? That's my train of thought. I'm getting tired and old.
I don't think she has the mental capacity to go on. We have to replace her with somebody, some random person who's unpopular.
Okay, it was the fact that they will not accept, that they wouldn't have accepted this vote if it had been tight at all. But now they're saying we will accept. But you tell me, what will be the strategy going forward? Because I don't think we're going to come around on trans issues, and we're going to come around on the border, and we're going to, as Chris Matthews is talking about, come around on inflation and get more. I don't foresee any of that happening.
You don't think so?
No, because here's what's going to happen. Trump's going to get sworn in if they don't stop him with some sort of lawfare or last-minute effort to declare him an insurrectionist and get faithless electors. He will eventually be sworn in, and Elon's going to start doing his thing, and RFK Jr, who scares the shit out of them, is going to start doing his thing.
And
they're going to. I told you were
all
wrong.
of us.
No, you're not me. You're
so right.
Yeah.
I think
there's some
Trump,
issues. I'm not going to lie. There's some issues.
I killed a bear this morning.
I predicted that Trump is going to curb him. I think he's going to curb.
You think?
Yeah, I'm thinking he's going to curb RFK Jr.
Well, I don't agree with that. Don't you think? Look, let me ask you who don't like RFK J.
Yeah.
You saw Dope Sick. You know what the FDA does with the people who are supposed to be serving us in the FDA, and they rubber stamp these terrible drugs, and they don't warn us properly, and then everybody is addicted to opioids and dying. Same thing with the food. They don't give two shits what kind of poisons are going into our food, because they all want jobs with the food companies or with the drug companies as soon as they leave the FDA, because they all want a pool in their backyard for the summer. That's exactly the kind of thing I think he's going to stop.
I'd be happy to see the FDA dismantled.
He's with you. You are a fan.
But the person doing the dismantling, I don't necessarily want it to be RFK, because he's going to replace it with something else.
Is it the brain worm? Is that?
It's not just the brain worm. It's his chain of logic. There's always a thing of crazy right in the middle of it. There's a connective tissue.
It doesn't draw you to him at all?
No, I don't. I want there to be some kind of connection. I don't want to replace a bureaucratic regime with an RFK regime. I want there to be no regime. I don't think that he's going to go there.
I love the Maha line.
I mean, I like Maha when he's just like, yeah, people need sunshine. They should take hikes. But I don't think Trump wants to have a national battle about removing fluoride from the water. I don't know that he really wants to
do your homework, Kmele. Fluoride is toxic.
By the way, the thing about that FDA fluoride study is it doesn't really matter what's true or what's false about it. It's just a weird thing to start with. Because in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, if you were a tinfoil hat person, before there was any studies on this at all, you talked about fluoride. That was always the joke, is the fluoride in the water. The fact that he came out with that is just like bad politics. Maybe do that in the back end.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Probably not. But yeah, I mean, I think that.
But look, did you watch any of that hearing, the Maha hearing? I mean, I've been getting into this lately over the past couple of years. But,
no.
But all right, Mr. Woo Atlantic writer.
I have not followed this closely.
That's why you sound the way you do.
Yeah.
Because trust me when I tell you that there are actual things that really need reform, including the amount of pesticides that our food is being treated with, totally unnecessarily. The different standards between the United States and Europe when it comes to something as simple as Fruit Loops, where we have 10 different chemical additives in ours just to make them extra red or extra blue.
My wife is urgently concerned about a lot of these same issues. I just think you actually need someone who has a tremendous amount of sophistication.
That is RFK J.
And some real grounding in these issues.
That's him, you guys. He spent his entire life fighting these issues as a lawyer. You don't need an MD to get an expertise in this area.
I'll accept that as well. I don't think he needs to be a total
I picked up his Fauci book and realized that about halfway through it, that I was reading the entire thing was about how HIV didn't cause AIDS. That he's big on that thing too.
There's some,
and the thing is that
Did he get in that
joke?
His cousin didn't do the murder?
Yes. Michael Skakel.
The cousin did the murder.
Cousin did the murder. Michael Skakel
totally did the murder.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Right? How can you support this man? You're supporting a murder apologist.
He killed Martha Moxley back in 1971
with a golf club.
The night before Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. And by the way, the
love
cousin.
This stuff, don't you?
The cousin, I do love true crime. The cousin, just in case you have any doubt, was caught jerking off in a tree looking at her. I mean, guilty.
Gosh. What?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah, before she was dead.
In the tree?
Innocent.
Yeah.
How do you jerk off in a tree?
I mean,
that's what he's concerned about.
I'm sorry, this is Trump's America. We can talk about this now. He must have had a platform of something.
Maybe you know what? The sex podcast girl, she's at SiriusXM. I can get you booked on her show. You guys can talk about this.
The material you had to use back then was different. In a tree looking down at somebody in a driveway. I guess that's normal. I don't know. I'm sweating because I'm so hungover, by the way. I just want everyone to know how bad I'm sweating.
I got to ask something else. In the same way the celebrities fell flat and have no influence, and they're going to wrestle with that today. Oprah's going to talk to Deepak Chopra about it. The Obamas.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
How about that?
They're going to blame her.
I mean, but
entirely.
What do you mean?
And they should.
Kamala.
Yeah, because she has no charisma. She has no
Yes,
riz.
correct.
And that, I mean, that was the overheard remark that Obama was talking with Biden, right?
Biden, the lip reading.
The lip reading.
So, I mean, they tried to incept joy at the DNC. They tried to say, if we just pretend that we're all experiencing this joy, and then let's otherwise not have her do any interviews or expose herself at all, we can somehow fool enough people that it'll work on Election Day. She was a bad candidate.
But his contributions weren't particularly great either. I mean, he's the guy who goes out and, hey, black men, you got to stop hating women. What are you doing?
Why do you moved by that at all?
Imagine that shame is going to work?
Like
shame is a really bad strategy. Well, I love one woman. I can only love one.
You hate the rest of them, exactly.
Well, exactly.
Obama was right.
I'm so lovesick. You just can't use shame as a strategy, and you can't use it in that way. And I mean, he did it. Michelle Obama did exactly the same thing. They were not actually meaningfully doing good work from an advocacy standpoint. They were also promulgating the exact same lies that we've heard over and over again about like dictator on day one, about very fine people. Like that's what you're carting Barack Obama out here to do for you.
And Obama could have there was that terrible month between Biden's debate performance, and it should have actually happened long before that debate performance. But and I said at the time that there's one person in America who I think had the normal kind of clout, authority, and ear to tell Biden, like, dude,
back off.
You gotta, this isn't working. And that was Barack Obama. He should have done that certainly the day after the debate instead of tweeting out as he did, like, Joe Biden might have some struggles with a word now and then, but he's still great.
And everybody has a bad night.
Everyone has a bad night. He should have been doing that within 24 hours, but he should have done that 6 months ago.
Well, what else did he not do within 24 hours? He didn't endorse her. It took him longest. It was a very long thought. I'm sure he did. And it's weird because everyone has to learn a lot of lessons in the Democratic Party from this election. Because you're right, pointing out some of these, the black men stuff, which I thought was actually weirdly odd for Obama.
It was.
Obama was never a guy, I mean, regardless of policy, the man understands politics. He's very, very good at it. He won 2 elections and they were not even close. When he was talking, what was it? A couple of years ago, he's done it multiple times now, about like wokeness. And he's like, this is
with your thumbs.
Yeah, and he's like, guys, this is too much. You can't cancel people for having different opinions. He's kind of has that ecumenical, broad-minded, and then slips into, this is what we have to do as Democrats. Maybe that thing they slip into in the future is going to be different. Because I know that Obama is not really married to that kind of ideology. He's just not that kind of person. And I don't love him as a political guy, but I think he's a very, very smart political mind.
Well, but for Barack Obama, the only thing we'd be talking about today is how America is racist, and that's the reason why Kamala Harris lost. If he hadn't won twice in this country, that is the only thing we'd be talking about.
They'll find a way, though, because she's got the double combo.
Yeah, I guess the racist Latinos.
Even though she's actually not black. So they should really only be playing the one.
Maybe that's why they're mad.
All right, you guys, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome to have you here. All right, coming up, the crew that was with me at 3 a.m. until 3 a.m. last night. I think beyond. Rich Lowry, Charles Cooke, and Maureen Callahan. Let's see if they're hungover. It's possible. 4 years of crushing interest rates, runaway inflation, and reckless government spending. And who is paying the price? You are. You might have bills stacking up, debt collectors on your back. You might barely be able to keep food on the table. Done with Debt can be a way out. They have developed new, aggressive strategies designed to get you out of debt permanently without bankruptcy or loans. Done with Debt stands between you and your bill collectors. They can go head-to-head with creditors, getting balances reduced, interest rates slashed, and penalties stopped. They create a plan to end your debt fast and put more cash in your pocket every month. And right now, Done with Debt is accepting new clients. But you need to act fast. Some credit relief programs expire. Before you even consider making another payment, you should think about a visit to donewithdebt.com. Or just call 1-888-322-1054 right now. Speak with one of their debt relief strategists for free. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. Let's be honest, the world is not getting any simpler. Whether it's a natural disaster, a supply chain issue, or just a nasty virus, things happen that we simply cannot control. But what we can control is how prepared we are. We have seen time and time again that preparation is key. It's about being proactive, not reactive. That's where the JACE case comes in. The JACE case is an emergency kit with prescription antibiotics that cover a huge range of common infections. The JACE case takes the guesswork and the panic out of these challenging situations. You'll have the right medication and you'll have it when you need it. In times of uncertainty, you don't want to be dependent on outside systems. With the JACE case, you have a practical, reliable solution right at your fingertips, And this is about taking control in a world that sometimes feels out of control. So don't wait until it's too late. Get prepared right now. Go to jase.com and enter MK at checkout. That's promo code MK at jase.com to get the right meds the moment you need them. This is about smart preparation for you and your family's peace of mind. Rich Lowry, Charles C.W. Cooke from National Review, and the Daily Mail's Maureen Callahan rejoin me now after a long, long night on the air. How's everybody feeling?
Much better.
Oh, yeah, your voice is better.
My voice came back. Oh. What do you think it was?
It was Trump.
I mean, my God, the stress is like gone. It's flushed out.
The first of the many gifts he's going to give you, Maureen.
Exactly.
All right, so now with a full, 6 hours to think about it, how are we seeing the consequential, monumental news of last night?
Well, I think it puts 2016 in a different perspective. So people like me would occasionally say, kind of a fluky victory and draws an inside straight. You look in 2020, he can't replicate it because it's such a narrow path. So this isn't really a good coalition for the party. This is too hard. And last night, he widened the path, he broadened the coalition, and did it again. He replicated it. So it makes 2020 look more like the exception. And obviously, we have a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic that played a big role. It probably would have won in 2020. So it validates for now Trump's kind of politics and what he's tried to do.
What do you think?
To some extent, I also just think it's a referendum on the Democrats and her as a candidate and Tim Walz as a candidate. They're crazy. Their policies are crazy. People are sick of the administration of which she was a part. They used to call it, you notice, the Biden-Harris administration.
Yeah.
That was how they would always refer to it. And then they couldn't work out what to do because they sort of had to distance her from it, but also they needed to make her look as if she has experience, and I think that's killed her.
One does wonder whether I don't think Tim Walz killed her chances. I think she killed her chances. Yeah. And Biden with his policies and with his many cuts in the back while she wasn't looking, which I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. But I do wonder how she would have fared if she had chosen someone more serious and someone we could take seriously as her running mate instead of that absolute Nimrod jumping around on the stage, moving his arms like he was flailing, not to mention his radical trans policies and his stolen valor military. I mean, he was stopped before he ever got out of the box from really connecting with people. He was outed as a serial fabulist. And then the hits just kept on coming. And that was the one thing she said on the record she did on instinct.
Right. Did on instinct. I think that this election is absolutely, I agree with Charles, it's a complete repudiation of the Dems, of their policies. Even people on the inside are now saying that they ran a shit candidate, that the country is done with woke orthodoxy, with trans mania, with open, porous borders, that they have to listen, they have to go to ground. Will they? I don't know. But watching the coverage on the left this morning, what's notable to me is it's less hysterical than 2016 or even when it was a close call.
Well, have you seen this clip? First,
show me.
Let me take you back to 2016. This woman became infamous for her reaction to Trump's win. Watch.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States. President Obama for the what a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere.
I'm sorry. No.
That's present day.
Why?
Yesterday.
Why? Do you
Yeah.
really hate me that bad?
That's this morning. So I don't know.
Wow.
Maureen. I'm not
okay,
sure.
I wasn't on TikTok. My bad. I was just on basic cable, so my bad.
But I do think
parked, right? She wasn't actually drunk.
I think so. But she's not wrong, right? If you watch MSNBC this morning and CNN, they're in the resignation piece of grief, like acceptance, because it was just so big. Yeah. Like there's just no, you don't.
Well, no, I think this is how they were last time, actually. I think it's very similar. I mean, I remember watching TV the next morning, and they were in resignation phase, and they did sound more thoughtful, and they did even indulge a little bit of self-criticism, which you didn't get last night. but they dropped it within a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. I remember after 2016, you had actually some press outlets like, we need to understand who are these working class people? Let's send a reporter to the rural areas or to a diner somewhere and learn more about them. So that lasted for a while, but at the same time, there was a massive freak out on the left, and they took Trump as a permission slip to go insane. Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately a huge reason why they lost this time.
Mm-hmm. The Trump agenda going forward. Let's talk about it for a minute. There was an interesting tweet from our pal Mike Davis. He was on the show last night. We talked about him, brilliant lawyer, Article 3 project. And let me see exactly what it said because I don't want to misquote it. He tweeted out, prediction. And keep in mind, we talked about last night, he clerked for Alito. Prediction, Justice Sam Alito is gleefully packing up his chambers.
What did I say last night?
You did say that. And that would create the room for President Trump to appoint, somebody was joking, some 25-year-old fresh out of law school who could stay on the bench forever. I mean, and Clarence Thomas potentially too. I mean, that could be 2 seats that could be secured for the next 40, 50 years, depending on how young he goes, for conservatives. I mean, that's got to be something you like about Trump.
Very much so. And that was the best thing about his first administration. And that is something he has a record on that I actually find unimpeachable. I mean, if you look at the quality of the Supreme Court now, it is higher than it's been for 100 years.
Yes.
And it's more originalist and faithful and thoughtful than it's been for 100 years as well. I mean, it's an irony, right? I don't need to relitigate all of my criticisms of Trump, but there is that. And then there are the people he put on the bench who are phenomenal adherents of the constitutional order. So yes, this is something I really like about Trump.
And not just the Supreme Court, Charlie, but all
the courts.
All the federal courts.
Most litigation doesn't get up to the Supreme Court, so it matters, yeah.
It matters
huge.
huge.
Issue where the right is just won. They won the intellectual debate over how to interpret the Constitution. Now, the left doesn't go along with it, but even they have to pay lip service, right? They're originalist, too. Won the political contention because they won the presidency and the Senate and paid a lot of attention to this and grew good constitutionalist judges that they put on the court. And that's one of the reasons why the left, if they had the power, just blow up the court, right?
Yep.
They've lost so thoroughly.
By the way, my team corrected me. He clerked for Gorsuch, so I had that wrong. Here, I want to go back to The View because everyone loves View clips. Sunny Hostin today with the following query. Watch SOT 16.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
So why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms? And why do you think Latino men voted in favor of someone that's going to deport, says he's going to deport the majority of his community?
White women like being called uneducated white women. I think the economy matters, national security matters. But when you put people in these boxes, I think that's a takeaway from this, right?
Did she focus group that phrase?
Can you believe?
Uneducated white women?
And by that, she means non-college educated women, which in her world means you're uneducated. Mm-hmm. You're a dumbass. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm thinking of Charlie Kirk. He did not go to college. He is not dumb. He's responsible in large part for this win today. It's just so offensive. And then she just can't seem to understand why they would vote against their reproductive freedom, Maureen.
It's so funny that you said what she really means is non-college educated, because about a minute after that, which I took in a sharp breath when she said that. It was so hateful. She's such a racist. She's such a race baiter. Everything is racialized with her, and it's so unintellectual and dishonest. Anyway, whatever producer was in her ear said, no. Say non-college educated. Like, that makes it better. We got your point the first time.
Yeah, too late. You already lifted the dress up.
Yeah,
we saw your real feelings.
And then also, she assumes most Latinos are illegals and are subject
I think it's
to
Latino.
deportation. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
But most of them are here illegally and came here for the right reasons. And if you talk to any of them, they deeply resent people who are coming over and just jumping the line.
And there are a lot of pro-life women.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I get that she isn't. That's fine. It's a free country. But it's such a narcissistic, myopic way of looking at the question. Like, she can only see it from her perspective. So women must be voting against their own interests rather than what they think are their own interests.
Yeah.
And the uneducated thing, I mean, this is a thing I've written about a lot. We have a problem in America. It's less acute, thankfully, than it is in Europe, but we're getting there. where we confuse education and credentials. Credentials and education are not the same thing. They do this when they talk about misinformation as well. They pretend that if you haven't been to college, you're more susceptible to misinformation. It's just not true. The whole woke agenda, especially with the trans stuff that you care so much about, that is actually the preserve of people who've been to good colleges.
Yeah.
You almost have to have been to a good college to believe that nonsense. It's like the Orwell line about that's an idea so stupid only an intellectual could believe it. It's people who are uneducated who understand that it's trash. So what she's saying there is not just sort of condescending. It's also very selective in that half of the bad ideas in the world are believed by the people she's lionizing.
Jen Psaki had similar comments about abortion and what she just cannot understand why it didn't rule the day. Watch.
And for so many of you watching right now, that news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally. After he lost 4 years ago, he refused to accept the outcome and incited a violent insurrection on our nation's capital. He's campaigned while facing criminal indictments related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before, and wield that power to go after his political enemies. This is a man who's also bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade and stripping away women's bodily autonomy. He's promised to conduct mass deportations to crack down on the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump is an anti-democratic force, but he's just been elected democratically in our country. Donald Trump was elected by expanding his support over a number of key groups. There will be a lot of time spent on how and why he won and what this will mean for the country over the next 4 years and beyond. I wish I had better news for my daughter later this morning. I know Tim Miller and I were talking about this earlier when she and so many others wake up to this news. I wish I could have called her and told her that the first woman president had just been elected. I wish that. I won't be able to do that. But what I can do, what I can tell my daughter, and what I will tell my daughter, is that our roles as American citizens have never been more important than they are right now.
Oh, my God. Oh, her poor daughter. Poor Dora's daughter. The fact that she did that over music, like the celebratory, we've got a call to me. Right? Fascist dictator, multiple prosecutions, convicted, felon, blah, blah, blah. My own takeaway is the women were well aware that there was messaging on abortion, that post-Dobbs, they're in a different position on abortion than they were pre-Dobbs, and they do not blame Donald Trump for it. And they do not think he's going to do anything to erode that right if it's important to them when he gets into office. The women got it right. They ultimately understood he's not. He said repeatedly that he's not going to try to do a ban. You said this last night in the wee hours of the morning, Rich. Imagine now with the Republicans so far at 52 seats in the Senate, and it could very well go up. We're waiting on the last few calls. But even if it doesn't, they have control. That's it. If they turned around and used the exact same rhetoric on the Democrats that they've been using, I believe in getting rid of the filibuster on abortion. Right. She just said it. Like within the past 7 days. Let's get rid of the filibuster on abortion. We're going to pass a nationwide abortion ban, and Trump's going to sign it. None of that's going to happen. Right. But can you imagine the freak out?
Of course. And this is something the media missed about Trump's campaign all along. In many ways, he was the moderate candidate. Now, it's masked by the way he talks and acts and things he says at the rally. But on abortion, what's the moderate position? That we should have it all the way through 9 months and make Catholic hospitals do it. Her position, or his position, let the states decide. And actually, I think some of the states have gone too far. Obviously, his is more moderate. On trans, who has the more moderate position, right? He just opposes this stuff the way 70% of the country does. Even on immigration, you wouldn't say mass deportations is a moderate position, but the public sentence moves so right in that on that in reaction to what's happened, they think that's more reasonable than just letting in millions of people unchecked because you've let this flood happen at the southern border.
The other thing is, can we just spend like a minute on the tariffs? I know that you guys are not pro-tariff. I mean, the old Republican Party or pre-Trump Republican Party was much more of a free trade Republican Party. And he's been very pro-tariff and did place tariffs in place, which Joe Biden left in place on China. But whether you like it or don't like it, I do think it was very appealing to the working class who hear it as he's out there with his sword saying, I'm going to fight for you. These companies that want to move south of the border, make all their goods, send them in here, costing you jobs, I will fight them. I'm going to make it too painful for them to do any of that. I'm going to use it as a weapon against China, who's hurt the United States on these free global trade policies. I think the working class guys got that. And at least what they heard was he cares. This is more than first-time homebuyers are going to get a $25,000 down payment and just these little pinpoint prick policies she tried to run on.
Absolutely. That home buyer thing, which as many economists pointed out, was a non-starter because all it would do was inflate the price of houses.
Everyone knows that.
Except for Kamala, apparently, or I'm going to make it easier for black men to sell weed.
Just get Bitcoin.
And this constant sort of infantilization of men, especially, which is another thing that the left has a huge problem with.
They were not mentioning that in their come to Jesus moment on MS this morning.
Oh, really?
I don't think they get what they've done to men.
Really? Oh, that's fascinating.
Did you get up in time to see Morning Joe?
No, I slept through it, but you can listen to the podcast on SiriusXM. So sometimes I do that for fun. To me, it was just amazing because the gaslighting that Scarborough has been doing continued. We talked about it in the first hour, Rich, where much in the same way he was like, what, Joe Biden who? Once he decided the switcheroo was happening, he was like, I've been trying to warn everybody about these radical leftist policies for years at dinner. You know, the kids say, can't say anything or they're going to get canceled. And by the way, the young people turned out in droves. Not a majority for Trump, but kept it tight enough with that group that it put him over the top. And the Gen Xers, our people, not you, you're a millennial, are the ones, that's the one age group that really voted in the majority for Trump. And I must submit for the record, that is because we grew up in the 80s when our parents didn't care about us and we had to raise ourselves. And we are sick and tired of this nonsense, helicopter, bullshit, cupcake, snowflake life that we're shoving on kids and each other. We don't believe in safe spaces.
Used to be, here's
any
your
of that.
twin bike, have at it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Banana seat.
Absolutely.
Just rainbow.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's any accident that Gen X put him over the top. And so now what, right? I mean, do you actually think that there will be a challenge to Trump taking office? Once, to your point, that they spoke like this in 2016 after he won, but then we all know what happened. They were ready to impeach him on day one. They didn't actually try to stop him from taking office, but this time there's been talk about that.
Well, they should be if they believe what they say about him. If you really think that was the last election we're ever going to have, if Trump takes office, then they should try and stop it. I don't think they will, because first off, I don't think they believe that. And second, I think even they are aware that it would be a little on the nose to do what they've been complaining about for 4 years. And if the House has gone to the Republicans, which now it looks as if it will, then there won't be an impeachment, at least not until after the midterms. What you are going to get, as I said last night, is a concerted attempt to make the case that this was the product of misinformation and lies and that the public was tricked. Because you just can't, over a sustained period of time, say the public is awful. I know they'll do it on MSNBC, but as a Democratic Party writ large, you can't say 51% of the country is wrong. It's just not electorally viable. So you have to say that 51% of the country was lied to, and then that's going to be Elon Musk, it's going to be social media, it's going to be the dastardly billionaires, us. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what you're going to see more than an attempt to stop him taking office.
Two things this just in. Vice President Kamala Harris called President-elect Trump, quote, to congratulate him on winning the 2024 presidential election per a senior Harris aide. She discussed the importance of a peaceful transfer of power and being a president for all Americans, said the aide. So good, she's conceded, and she's supposed to actually concede publicly later today. I think they said at 4. Secondly, I mean, think of the number of hours we've all devoted to covering the lawfare against Trump. And I'd love to get into what role that had in tonight's result or last night's result. But I'll give you the news headline first. Ken Delaney of NBC. New DOJ officials are evaluating how to wind down the 2 federal criminal cases against Trump. before he takes office to comply with longstanding department policy that a sitting president can't be prosecuted.
Oh, that'd be good.
Wait, can we just think about that? I mean, it's just remarkable. Look what they did. I mean, they
had it. You mean they had it going during the election and then immediately stopped when it didn't work?
Just the audacity of what they did to him. The Banana Republic shit.
Yeah.
Going after a former president, and with 2 federal prosecutions, very scary prosecutions for stuff that, in the Mar-a-Lago case, it wasn't great. He had the documents. He wasn't the first, as everybody knows. But the January 6th thing was made up. It had already been tried and dismissed by the American people. And now, they are on the knee. He wrested the mantle of power away from them. They're on the knee. They're in submission. They've given it up. There will be no additional appeal to the 11th Circuit. That will be abandoned. There will be no going back to Judge Chutkan, who hates him, trying to get her to somehow say he's an insurrectionist before he gets certified. This is it. Fani Willis is done. We talked about that. Alvin Bragg is the last man standing, and that's a nothing. He's not sending Trump to jail. But that's it. That's the white flag, Rich, after all this time.
One of the more amazing aspects of this campaign season was every time Trump or a Republican would say his political enemies have gone after him and prosecuted him, they'd get fact-checked. And they say, no, that's not true. How do you know that? Even if you put the Justice Department aside and just say it's on the straight and narrow, Bragg and Fani Willis were Democrats, right? And one of them basically pledged to do this in a political campaign. So, of course, his political enemies went after him. And Jack Smith was not separate from the Justice Department. He was a creature of the Justice Department that is run by Joe Biden, his political
and the number 3 guy from Justice went to work with Alvin Bragg, Matthew Colangelo.
Yeah, so Trump, if you ever talk to him about this, why don't you get stressed by things? Why don't you have trouble sleeping at night when all this is going on? He's always like, I just kind of figure it's going to work out. And if it doesn't, I'll figure out some other way to make it work out. He made this work out, right? When at the outset, reasonable people thought, 4 indictments, not survivable. Forget it. You're going to be in courtrooms the whole time. You might be going to jail. And he tiptoed through the raindrops and prevailed over these people. And I say, good.
And by the way, the one thing that they got him on, they got him on 2 things civilly. One was Tish James with the lawsuit against his business, saying that they committed corporate fraud by getting loans on more favorable terms than he was entitled to. All the banks said, we're fine with what he did. We got paid back fully. We're a sophisticated partner. We don't need your protection, Tish James. The appeal on that was brutal for Tish James. That the appellate division is going to reverse that verdict in Tish James's favor, and Trump's going to emerge victorious on that. The one thing he's not going to emerge victorious on, at least the way it looks now, is the E. Jean Carroll civil suit against him, which then, after she won, he allegedly defamed her by continuing to deny, which was also ridiculous. Courts said you have no right to continue saying I didn't do it. And I can't help thinking about this moment, which just showed just how gleeful they were about trying to destroy him, and I've never forgotten it. It was Maddow and E. Jean Carroll right after she won her $80 million.
You want a designer bag?
SOT 114.
You've talked about using some of Trump's money that you're about to get to help shore up women's rights. Do you know what that might be, what that might look like?
Yes, Rachel. Yes.
Tell me.
I had such great ideas for all the good I'm going to do with this money. First thing, Rachel, you and I are going to go shopping. We're going to get completely new wardrobes, new shoes, motorcycle for Crowley, new fishing rod for Robbie. Rachel, what do you want? Penthouse? It's yours,
Nothing.
Rachel. Penthouse and France? You want France? You want to go fishing in France? No? Oh, all right, okay.
That's a joke.
Although if me fishing in France could do something for women's rights, I would take the hit. I would obviously take one for the team.
She's not laughing anymore, Rachel Maddow. She doesn't really give a damn about E. Jean Carroll. She was just a tool to hurt Trump and potentially stop his chances of being reelected so they could call him a sexual predator. Well, it didn't work. They did exactly that. That was Kamala Harris's opening message when she got the nomination, or was it the elevation, was that he was a sexual predator. She knows his type. That's why E. Jean Carroll was useful to them. And it didn't work. Rachel Maddow's not laughing this morning.
There's nothing like seeing people laugh about alleged sexual assault. I can think of nothing less funny than being a survivor of sexual assault. So that display right there was cynical, disgusting, and exactly what you're saying. It was just a tool. She was just a useful idiot, And again, with Kamala, the problems are manifold and we will be dissecting them for a long time to come. But the gall to go out there and say, this guy's a sexual predator when you're married to Doug freaking Emhoff.
She knew.
She knew. How could she not know that was going to come out? She had to know.
It's interesting because Mark Halperin said right after she was elevated, has she been fully vetted? And he suggested, has Tim Walz been fully vetted? Are we sure that this is going to work out? Let's talk about Trump. He has been abused by this DOJ and the lawfare and so on. So he sounded magnanimous last night. He said he wanted to be a president for everyone, wants the country to unite. They always say that, and then we don't. But do you think we're going to have a kinder, gentler Trump in office? Or no. Shaking heads, no.
Well, it depends what you mean by that. He's not going to change his nature, but he was president before and he didn't go after Hillary Clinton, which was what everybody said they expected him to do. So who would he go after this time? The argument would be Biden for some of these investigations into the...
I think one theory is he could go after the prosecutors, right?
It could be Biden because Biden was said to have committed crimes by the special counsel who investigated him and just said...
I just don't see that. I don't see that happening.
I don't either.
I could possibly see going after the prosecutors. I actually, and here I'm sure I'll be wrong, but I actually don't think he will. I just don't think he wants to spend his time doing it.
It'll be all consuming if he tries to do it.
Exactly.
And he'll fail. And
he wants to be popular, and it wouldn't be popular.
Right. And maybe this won't be true because they're going to unwind it, as you just shared with us on the news. But I thought this would be the flashpoint. They're shutting down the investigation, getting the guy in to shut it down, and controversies and supposed scandals over that. Maybe that won't happen out the gate.
What is going to happen now in the next whatever days? What is it now? November 6th. January 20th, he'll be sworn in with Joe Biden. Does he pardon Hunter? Does he? There's some crazy, speculation on the internet that he might go to Sotomayor and say, hey, now would be a great time for you to step aside too. She's 70. I could have one. Right now, the Democrats control the Senate, so he could get a confirmation. So is there any chance of that?
This is pure speculation on my part, just the product of having followed the Senate very closely. I am not 100% convinced Joe Manchin would do it. Joe Manchin's going to be in the Senate until the beginning of, January 5th? If Joe Biden now is a lame duck, having lost an election of that magnitude, or his party having lost it, said, I'm going to put in a new Supreme Court justice, I wonder if Joe Manchin, who, remember, just is about to hand over the keys to Jim Justice to be the new senator, who won 70-30, I wonder if Manchin would go along with it. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I think it would feel too rushed and cynical and disorderly. But I'd be kind of shocked if he doesn't pardon Hunter.
I think he will.
How is he going to get kicked off the ticket, have his successor lose, and then see his son go to jail, sometime when he's in the retirement home in Wilmington? I think he'll pardon him.
You think Trump might pardon him if Biden doesn't? I could see him loving the press. Honestly,
I think Trump would pardon him.
Yeah, he just wants, because he would think, if I pardon him, I look magnanimous. It was a popular thing to do. And he can say, Trump would say, I've been on the end of all of this federal, apparatus, and I'm going to use my position to get you off the hook.
You already had J.D. Vance saying nice things about Hunter Biden on his Joe Rogan interview. This just in, Democrat Tammy Baldwin wins the Senate race in Wisconsin, securing a third term. So that is a House that the a seat that the House Republicans, why do I keep saying it? Senate Republicans will not pick up. So what do we think the number may be now? You got 52 seats in the Senate. It's not going to be 53 from Wisconsin. Michigan, not clear whether Mike Rogers is going to pull that out.
I think he's not. Pennsylvania is going to go Republican, so that's 53. And then the question is Nevada, is that going to be 54? And it looked as if it wasn't, but then there's a county, I forget the name of it, that is quite Republican, that just dropped 25,000 votes. And so it's possible that puts the Republican candidate over the threshold. And then the question is, are there enough mail-in ballots and late ballots in Clark County to offset that? So that one's still live. So 54 is the maximum, 53 is the minimum.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
You feel confident about the House?
I didn't, but then I also got the election wrong, Megyn. So
and he's the prognosticator.
Yeah. That's true. Why am I looking at him?
Even with the accent, we're not.
Last night I thought it was possible it would go to the Democrats, but this morning Decision Desk has predicted 221 Republican seats and now 223. So it seems it's pushing.
It does matter. I mean, controlling both bodies of Congress would be amazing for President Trump. He could really push an agenda through, including immigration reform. You three have been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Megyn,
so much,
for
guys.
having us.
We're
really
part of history,
it.
and it's an honor. Thanks to all of you, too, for listening and watching. We greatly appreciate it.